Today, for our case study, Trevor Batty is going to talk about the Tyee and their approaches to building an audience. Trevor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks so much for the invitation. I'm Trevor Batty. I also teach in the publishing program. Some of you may have had Publishing 456 on festivals and events, and Publishing 458 journalism as publishing problem. And outside of all that, I run a company called Trevor Batty Advertising Sales. We do advertising and things for many groups, including the Tyee. I've been working there since the end of the pandemic, start of the pandemic. It's all a blur. For those not familiar, I will show you the Tyee very briefly. This is the Tyee. We are now 20 some years old, and it's online journalism covering, made in BC, but covering national stories. And so, in thinking about today's talk, it occurred to me that the newest thing that has us all very excited is our weekend section, which we've revitalized, called The Weekender. It's an interesting story because our founder, David Beers, before he started the Tyee, worked at the Vancouver Sun, and he was responsible for a number of years for a section called Mix. And Mix was the Vancouver Sun's weekend culture section where you could read about everything from movie reviews, theater reviews, upcoming productions, Broadway across Canada, everything arts and culture. And the idea was it comes out on Saturday morning, and it was a dedicated section. In November, Dave got us all together and he said, we have a problem. And our problem is that during the week, our audience engagement's really great. On the weekend, it falls off. And so how are we going to revitalize that? We're going to create basically a digital version of Mix on the Tyee, but better and more like the Tyee. From an advertising perspective, I was like, I want to test this a little bit. I want to get some feedback from people. I want to see what people are going to say about it. And he was like, do what you want. We're doing it. So in January of this year, we soft launched the thing. If I scroll down here, we have this lovely section that now takes up a piece of the homepage where we talk about The Weekender. Little blurb there about what it is. And so on the weekend, on Friday, about usually around somewhere between 5:30 and 7:30 at night, this takes over the whole homepage of the site. We run 3 stories and then usually one piece of sponsored content as part of that. The response has been phenomenal. Prior to launch, we used one of our polls. We do these Tyee polls. This week's poll is about the Alberta separatists. So we did a poll on The Weekender. What kind of content did people want to see? Books, not surprisingly, number one with a bullet. We've had a long history of book advertising, great relationships with books. Fun fact, the Tyee was the original birthplace of the 100-Mile Diet, which was originally a Tyee article that turned into a book. We've had lots of editorial pieces eventually go on to become books, so that's no surprise. This is a bit ambiguous. Film, photo essays, theater, video, fashion, and then other. The problem with this poll, for those who can see the elephant in the room, is music is not mentioned. When we talk to folks in the music industry about this, they get a little upset, but we try and suggest that should be lumped in with art. That doesn't make it any better for the music people, but that's fine. And so we launched the section, and then some of you will know the challenge that we face at the Tyee because of the meta ban. There is a really great article where our audience, once the meta ban came into effect, they found all these different ways to hack that and post news anyway, which was a cool moment for our audience development in terms of the audience being able to really quickly respond to the meta ban. The other thing that works really well for the growth of The Weekender in particular is our e-newsletter. The e-newsletter has been around since February, and we've got about 2,500 subscribers and growing. This is the article. Where are we? Here we go. E-newsletter. So this comes out Saturday mornings. Nice little ad promo for the Jazz Festival. And what this is a cultural roundup for that Weekender edition written by Jackie Wong, who is our fabulous editor and Weekender editor. This is all meant to drive audience to us, which works really well. The cool thing about the Weekender is it's given us a new format to work with. And out of that new format has come some pretty culture friendly things, way bigger images. We had video integration before, but we've integrated video into the Weekender so that you could play trailers. I would say to anybody out there looking to increase your engagement, integrate video into your articles or whatever editorial you're producing. People love it. Our audience will watch these videos all the way through, which is pretty great. Really huge full screen images to showcase what culture is doing.
The Weekender is takes over the homepage, you said,
Yeah.
and then it's also promoted through a newsletter. Is that how those 2 work?
Yeah. So Saturday morning, the newsletter comes out and it drives people to the website
Yeah.
to read more of the stories. We're also promoting it through a number of inclusions off of the editorial where those editorial pieces tie in with other arts and cultural organizations. They promote those pieces in their own e-newsletters. For example, one of the early pieces in the Weekender, which was a favorite of mine, Leslie Hertig from the Writers Festival wrote this very cool piece to my late father, Mel, We Need You Now. This was a piece that Leslie wrote talking about how her dad, Mel, who was a very prominent figure in Canadian publishing, he was a very proud Canadian, and people used to refer to him as Captain Canada or Mr. Canada. She wrote this beautiful essay talking about how we need to go back to a lot of the things in publishing that he advocated for. The piece got a lot of engagement, 99 comments, is pretty great. But the other thing that occurred, of course, is naturally the Writers Festival promoted this in their e-newsletter. And so while we were excluded from Facebook, we're getting great promotion from other like-minded cultural partners. Sometimes this occurs naturally, as in this example where we're writing a story. That story is then circulated by people who are mentioned in it. The other example of this kind of relationship is when we have folks who advertise with us and they get a discount on advertising in exchange for helping us promote the Weekender, because that's how ultimately the Weekender is going to grow, we think, is through e-newsletter contributions and e-newsletter mentions. We are interestingly seeing some traffic from Apple News and Google, which is great. Apple News has increased pretty significantly since the Meta ban. I think a lot more people are going to Apple News because it's included in their devices. The other example in the case of the museum. So this is the Museum of Vancouver. They paid for this and it's doing very well statistically in exchange for a discount on paying for this sponsored content piece. They included us in their e-newsletter. One of the things we've discovered about e-newsletter mentions is rather than an ad, it works better for us if we can provide some text and an image rather than just a standard banner ad. It works much better for us to provide something like this, a bit of a teaser, an image, and then driving people to the subscribe today and get the Weekender in your inbox. We feel if we can drive people to that newsletter, that's a great entry point for them. If you click on this It's very simple, just like subscribe today and also check out a recent issue if you want. What's also interesting about this model is that when you look at our e-newsletters themselves, there is an opportunity at the bottom to go from being a newsletter subscriber to becoming a Tyee builder or donor. So we don't have any of this behind a paywall. The theory is that if you like the content you're getting, you'll eventually pay for that content because you enjoy it and want to see it continue. If we go back to the e-newsletter, there's the ad for the jazz festival. Lovely. And then down the bottom here, three things from Dorothy Wooden, our fabulous culture editor, that she's doing this weekend. These are not paid. This is just three things Dorothy wants to do this weekend. The Weekender is paid for by readers like you. Corporate newsrooms across Canada have been shutting down and laying off journalists, but we can only do it with the support of Tyee builders who chip in to our editorial budget. You can donate to the Tyee if you like what you read. We are in the middle of a big reader survey, the data for which is going to be available next week. We've asked questions about what people want to see in the Weekender, how that's all doing for them, any changes they want to make. We spend a lot of time talking to our readers about new things they want to see and do because our readers, from a financial perspective, are what's driving the revenue at the Tyee. The more readers we can attract, eventually those people will become donors over time. The data proves that over time, people do become donors. We are working, as we have been for the last several years, on charitable status. I was checking in about that in preparation for this, and Jeanette was like, yeah, they asked us a bunch of questions. We haven't followed up because when we follow up, they get annoyed at us at the CRA. That remains to be seen. But if we could get charitable status, then people could get tax receipts. That would only fuel more of this. But as this model continues to grow, the more people we can reach out to and say, can you include us in your e-newsletter? The more that will drive more Tyee audience, which will grow the project, which will increase the number of advertisers, which will the whole loop, right? So that's basically the model. It continues to do fairly well, and it shows no signs of stopping. The other thing we've allowed people to do once you become a donor that's interesting is you can get the Tyee ad free. I think it's a really interesting model because I was panicked a little bit when we started this idea of if you sign in to become a builder, all the ads disappear. Of course, people are going to do that, but actually, not as many as you think. Of all the Tyee builders, it's only a small percentage doing things ad free now. We're not particularly worried about that cannibalizing the ad activity. There is some talk about us getting into events with this. That kind of remains to be seen. Events are expensive. We have supported other people's events. We may get into some of our own, but events are expensive to run. You need a lot of people power. That takes people away from their regular jobs.
That's great, Trevor. Thank you for giving us an overview. And that's a good growth curve for the Weekenders audience.
I was surprised that when we had the conversation about launching the newsletter, my question was, how many people can we get with little internal promotion? I was told that fairly quickly we would get the first 1,000 subscribers. It's grown significantly with mostly internal promotion. We promoted in all of our other e-newsletters. Once we start promoting it with other organizations, we expect that to grow significantly, particularly heading into fall when there'll be lots of arts and culture events. It looks good going forward.
Some of your offline advertising would be in handouts and things from other organizations that are your advertisers.
Yeah, so we'll probably in the fall do some tabling at events for
Right.
the media partner. We'll also have a presence at the Writers Festival, the Vancouver Writers Festival, because we have a partnership with them. So
Mhm.
that'll be something interesting for us to try and capture email addresses. The goal at the moment is really, wherever possible, to capture email addresses because that's how we're building any sort of audience funnel. We are on TikTok and on Blue Sky. I don't have too much of a sense of how those folks are converting into builders, but it's just one more place to be as people circulate content and comment. That's been really the interesting
Mm,
thing driving a lot of the growth. We're seeing people join and follow us on Blue Sky. I don't know if that audience is actually converting. And like our reporters, Jen St. Dennis, who is one of our reporters, she's on TikTok pretty actively talking about different stories and things like that. It's great content, and I'm glad we're there. Don't know how we'll convert those people into readers and builders and all the rest of it. It'll be interesting to watch that over the next little while. I'm not on Blue Sky at the moment. I'm trying to avoid joining any more social media for the next little while. Yeah, it's all part of it, right? If your audience can't get you, we're still on X as well, I think, or maybe there was some talk of leaving X. I think there was an article that said we left X.
but we're getting close to time, so I just wondered if you had any quick tips since you've seen our student presentations in the past.
I would say tips for presentations. The most important thing you can do is distinguish your publication from the other big competitors in the space. When I started many years ago, we used to say that advertising or the point of magazines was providing an audience an editorial environment that they trust. And I think we're beyond trust now. What need does your publication fulfill that your audience can't get anywhere else? That's the Mark Cuban quote. How would I kick my own ass?
That feels like a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks.